Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again. Today, I would like to continue to talk about the coronavirus epidemic because it is a pandemic, which means, this coronavirus problem started in Wuhan in China, has now spread to the whole world. More than 90 countries, basically every continent you have infected person. And many countries not only have a number of people infected, but also a number of deaths. And interesting is, there are two countries, unfortunately, suffer a lot from this coronavirus. One is Iran, and the other one is Italy. Yeah? And I have been both of these two countries, so I know a little bit about both of these countries. Let's start with Iran. How come Iran have so many infected? As far as I remember, they have something like official figure, 3,700 infected. And number of deaths is 120. I assume these figures are too low, because, considering a regime like the one in Iran, bad news should be suppressed, right? They have this principle. So they try to keep the figure down. But even they try to keep the figure down, they still are one of the worst in the world, or maybe the worst in the world after China, of all the countries outside China. Now, how come these two countries, Iran and Italy? Let's start with Iran. I remember in the 70s, I was actually in Iran, at the harbor of Abadan. And also I was in the capital of Iran, Tehran. At that time it was interesting. It was still rather modern and liberal, comparing to many other Middle East countries. It was quite a liberal country. In the time of Shah, before these Islamic leaders took over the political power. So I was there, and in Tehran you could see, you didn't see so many women walking around covering their face. You thought you were in one of those Western capitals. Actually, some people called Tehran at that time the Little Paris. But today, my goodness, it's totally different. Because of this Islamic religious leader has taken over the politics. It's the same people who run both the religion and politics. It always doesn't, mean anything good when a country, when the political and religious leader is the same. So actually, since then, since the 70s, Iran has been more and more become a kind of radical Islamic regime. And, less and less democracy, and less human rights, less and less freedom. Today, Iran is one of the biggest abusing country of human rights in the world. And actually, interesting enough is some people, I think particularly within the American government, some people actually privately call there is an axis of evils. And guess who are those countries in this axis of evils? In the Second World War, when people talk about axis of evil, then it was Germany, Italy under Mussolini, and Japan. The three countries who stood for the invasion to other countries. Now, today, when people talk about the axis of evil, actually also three countries, and that is Iran, North Korea, and China. Interesting, huh? So why people call them the axis of evils? Because they have strong ties with each other, all these three countries, Iran, North Korea, China. Now, most people in the West they are pretty aware that North Korea and Iran regime are, a kind of evil regime. They have no democracy. They are totalitarian. They, very tough control over the people. No freedom of speech, no freedom of press, and so on. And that's the same in China, actually. The only difference between China and North Korea is North Korea, they carry out their totalitarianism in such a way that everyone could see that they are, totalitarian. In China, that's different. It's more sophisticated. Yeah, when you go to China, you also get the feeling, oh, you are in a modern country. Things it's quite similar to what we see in Europe. So you got the impression that they are getting liberal and maybe it's even democratic, but it's not true. That's only the facade. Yeah, behind the facade, behind the curtain, is maybe even more sophisticated suppression and persecution. Iran, the same thing, yeah, but not as sophisticated as China. So, but anyway, important to know is China and Iran have an extremely strong tie with each other. Not only economically, not only economic exchange, doing a lot of business. You guys should know that America has introduced embargo against Iran for quite a long time now, and no one should actually do business with Iran. And China turned out to be the biggest importer of oil from Iran, which is very important for the survival of Iran because Iran is an oil-producing country. Same thing actually with North Korea. There is also an embargo that no one should do business with North Korea, and China again is the biggest business partner with North Korea. Interesting is Iran, suffer a lot in this coronavirus. And personally, I believe that has to do with their very strong tie with China. When you cooperate a lot militarily, for example, a lot of nuclear technology, nuclear weapon technology, missile technology in Iran came from China. Yeah? China even helped them to build factory that can produce special steel for the use in intercontinental missiles. Yeah, so extremely strong tie, which means Chinese military experts, Chinese military manufacturers, their people visit Iran very often, and vice versa. Iranian people, because of that, also visit China very often, and we don't know because it's military, so they don't announce it. So, but they are there. So very frequent contact. Now, adding the contact due to economic reason, the oil companies selling to China and so on, yeah, and the so-called cultural exchange too. So the contact between these two countries must be very frequent, and that's why also more coronavirus infected people and death toll. So, you see, the world is like that. You cannot just gain without losing. When Iran was having this, so to say, the great time with China, they were so happy. China, America didn't allow people to buy oil from us, and China buy almost all the oil, yeah. And China support us with military, and you guys should also be aware that Iranian regime is the biggest supporter of many terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and probably ISIS too. So there's a supply chain, Iran supplied these terrorist organizations and China supplied Iran with all this technology and weapon and so on. So, and you see, whenever you gain something, you may lose something. Only then you may not be aware of it. So they thought they were gaining a lot by, having this strong tie with China. Now the coronavirus make them the first one being seriously hit. Yeah, with now official figure 3,700 infected and 120 deaths. I personally believe, considering a country like Iran, this figure is too low, as I say. Now, another country have also unusually high number of infected. people and high number of deaths. Yeah, and that's Italy, but Italy is not the same type of country as Iran. Italy is a democratic and liberal country with freedom of press, freedom of speech, and so on. Yeah, that's true. But how come they also suffer so much? Do they have a strong tie with China? Well, in the military area, not so much. Maybe a little bit, but not much. But in economic area and cultural area, a lot. And they actually have probably more contact than many other European countries. And that partly because I was in Italy many times, and actually I even had several times speeches to Italian high society as a kind of so-called China expert to explain to them what is going on in China. And some of them understand, but some of them they don't. And I found out there are two reasons. One is because of, like in most other European countries, ignorance about what is really going on in China. Second reason is because of the greediness to make money. But with Italy, there's maybe a third factor, and that is a kind of romantic picture of China. Because of Marco Polo, all Italians people, when they talk to me, they always mention Marco Polo, we also believe that Marco Polo have learned from China how to make spaghetti, and from the noodle, and that's why we eat spaghetti today, blah, blah, blah. So, nothing wrong. I mean, I can understand that. But what they don't understand is Chinese Communist Party is not the same as China. Culturally, I understand. They are right. Yeah? China and Italy has a strong tie in the history. That's true. And there's nothing wrong with that, and we should further develop it. But today, they have to understand the Chinese communist regime cannot represent China because they are actually against Chinese traditional culture. The leading thinking, the leading ideology they have is absolutely not Chinese. Yeah? Marxism and Leninism and communism and so on. So this is the problem. The Italians thought they were smart, because of this romantic picture they wanted to do. And the Chinese communists are very good in utilizing this positive romantic view of China. So a lot of Italian companies signed contract with China. So they were happy, making money. And now they have to pay a high cost, because human life is priceless. Yeah? Is it worth losing 190 lives now because of coronavirus? And this is only the beginning. Yeah? 190 deaths in Italy. So this is what I want to mention. It's very special, these two countries, Iran and Italy. Now, many people may really think, how come we have this problem with coronavirus? Well, I don't know. To be honest, the scientists, they don't know either. But one thing I can mention, which I will talk about it more in the future, and that is maybe we find the answer in the ancient wisdom. China or Europe or Western culture, same. In old China, like in old Europe, you have a lot of prophecy. For example, in the West, in Bible, you have the book of Revelation. In China, you have many different books. Yeah, and one that really struck me is a Buddhist sutra, Buddhist book called Wugong Jing, the Sutra of Wugong, and they have a prophecy. Yeah. Describing the catastrophe that people in this time, in our time, will encounter. And they have a sentence, they say, in the year of Zianchou, which is basically this time of our history, yeah, the catastrophe start at the river bank. Ji Chou Zhi Lian Jiang Bian Qi. And you know that Wuhan is situated at the Yangtze River. Yeah? And they say it starts there. Okay? So I will talk more in the coming videos. So just give you a hint. Don't think that in ancient time, ancient people don't understand so much as we do. May not be true. Okay, thank you. And don't forget, if you like it, subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.